Hello and a very warm welcome to a fresh edition of Gen Next. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Well, the new generation is leading certainly towards the Vedic way, especially in the midst of fast-track life with loads of ambition and aspirations. With gaining popularity of Osho, Buddhist chant groups, yoga, Vipassana, ISKCON and Art of Living and many others, Gen Next seems to have understood the concept of New Age spirituality, which strives on balancing act between chaotic and perhaps a stressful lifestyle outside and finding calm and composure within. Well, to discuss all that and much more, the big question, can spirituality and Generation Next or youth coexist? We have a very esteemed panel in this edition of Gen Next today. We have Chaitanya Govind Acharyaji. Chaitanya Govind, he is the director of All India Chinmaya Yuva Kendra and Chinmaya Vision. Thank you very much, Govindji, for being with us on Gen Next. And we also have today Mr. Shiv Khera, who needs no introduction, philosopher, author and international motivator. And of course, we can't forget You Can Win, the bestseller of all times. Thank you very much, Mr. Khera, for being with us on Gen Next. Swamiji, let me come to you first. This entire concept of can youth and spirituality coexist, is it a question or it is an answer in itself? It
is an answer in itself. Let me tell you why. Spirituality deals with three aspects mainly. The definition of spirituality, it is called science of self. It deals with the core human being, the core, central core of the personality. Coming to the point, spirituality is the only subject in the world which deals and tells you how to handle yourself first. When I don't know how to handle myself, I can never handle anything, any situation in the outer world. First thing. Second thing is the spirituality will bring a new and noble intentions and a nobler goals it fixes in front of us. It helps us how to decide a noble goal, not an ordinary cheap goals of third-rate goals. Second point. Third point is it deals with the still greater aspect of human existence itself on the planet, deals with human evolution and self-realization. So we have to go systematically. First, learn how to handle yourself, then also how to deal with the outer world with keeping a good goal, nobler goals, which would not only benefit me, the individual person, also should benefit the whole world around. And third thing is deals with the directly, which is of course a few in the world would try always for it, self-realization.
Let's go beyond spirituality, Mr. Khera, and your take on the fact that being spiritual, does it also broaden one's mental horizons? When we talk about one's mental horizons, we're of course talking about the Generation Next.
Well, first of all, let me reverse and put a question back. How can spirituality not exist with humanity? It's not a question of youth. Does that imply that spirituality exists with adults and not the youth? Is that what is implied by that question? Well, I've just recently completed some videos on smoking, HIV, and especially these are concerns because I was addressing a group of principals, and their biggest concern was this teaching of sex education in schools. And the kind of sex education they're teaching in schools, really, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's nothing short of pornography. And when we talk of spirituality, we're talking of a much larger canvas. And it came up that 90% of HIV is being spread through multiple partners, homosexuality, and needles. Less than 10% is being spread through parent-child and blood transfusion. Now 90% is the other side. So what does it tell you? It is a moral problem, not a medical problem. And one more fact, especially the youth here. Over 50% of new infected people are under age 25. What does that tell you? You see, each one is an indicator to something else, because today, from the day of puberty to the date of marriage, it has extended a lot. Earlier, people used to get married 21, 22, 25, somewhere. Now people are getting married. Puberty starts at 13, 14. They're getting married in the 30s. Is that right, folks? Yes, no. And what is happening, the distance between puberty and marriage has increased tremendously. And people are not going mountain climbing. All they're doing is going to the pubs, drinking, and hear this. What happens is when you drink, your inhibition level goes down.
Right, Mr. Shiv Khera, that's precisely why we are discussing. You have a fast, trendy lifestyle, the discotheques and pubs, which is considered an in thing nowadays. Let's take a question. Therefore, there is a debate. Can it really exist? And more than that, go ahead with your question.
My name is Ankit. So my question is, why should the youth be spiritually inclined?
Well, let me ask you. It's not a question of spiritually inclined. Just yesterday's paper said there was a fight between people to get a parking spot. Now you tell me one thing. If there is an elderly person who's backing into a parking spot and a youth comes in, because they do not respect the elderly, they don't respect the parents, they don't respect the teachers anymore, tell me what is happening. The guy comes and parks in. To date, I don't even take my principal's name without addressing him as Mr. M.N. Kapoor. I don't use his name without Mr. He's not here because of respect for the teachers. And if that respect is missing, what is there? Now you tell me one thing. If you were the person parking that car, you came in first, and a young man comes in and shoots in the parking spot, is it not a spiritual question? Hello? Is it not a spiritual issue? So how can it not be? So reverse the process. You had in, you were moving in, you came first. These are social skills, social basic courtesies that we need to, and this forms part of spirituality, doesn't it? How can it not? So I am talking of not religion, we are talking of day-to-day interaction. This forms part of spirituality, which is, as Swamiji said, it starts from self. What does the golden rule say? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do you want to be mistreated? I don't care what age you are, tell me, do you want to be ill-treated? So what does spirituality have to do with age? You tell me.
Right. Govindji, Shiv Khera sir talked about the difference between religion and spirituality. How do they define and how do they relate to this concept, yoga, spirituality, and art of living and things like that?
See, yoga you take, it's a practice. Spirituality is a pure science, where religion is applied science. This is a definition given by Swami Chidrupanandaji. A beautiful definition. So when the pure science deals with the human evolution, as Shivaji was telling, relationships, responses, it's all basic things exactly speaking. So yoga, you take religion, take any religion, they deal with practices. Practices, but same goal. And that is a view of the taken by all the masters all over the world, right from the beginning. So there is no problem in it.
Right. We have members from the ISKCON Youth Forum, and let's see what they have to say. We begin with you.
The first question is, what is the meaning of spirituality and what is the goal of spirituality? Other than the noble cause. Noble cause is humanitarian. Spirituality is above humanitarianism. And according to Bhagavad Gita, the spirituality means to search for the soul and to connect it with Krishna. This is what is the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. So is it connecting with Krishna or with the humanitarian cause only?
Right. We'll of course take this question from him also. He wants to add a point here, and perhaps you want to say something. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Just to elaborate on what Harinarayan Prabhu said, as you mentioned, the second point in the 3 points that you mentioned initially, the noble act. Again, is a noble act just on personal discretion? I mean, there's, the question of it leads you to doing noble acts. That's again a personal discretion. Something that might be noble for me might not be noble for somebody else. One man's food is another man's poison. So how do you define that? How do you elaborate on that? Thank you.
Coming back to your question, first question. See friend, spirituality, as I told you, it deals with the science of self, the true self. Who are you? The spirit inside. The goal of spirituality is no doubt, it has been ultimately said as spiritual realization. Coming to the practical point, in Gita also, Is it not that Lord Krishna again and again told many times that see me in all these expressions of the outer world? Has he not told that the whole creation is his vibhuti or his own glory? And serving him in the form of different names and beings, serving him, is it not serving Lord? Is he available only in the particular form, or is he not available in all forms? So actually speaking, when you really go and develop your consciousness, unfold your consciousness, definitely one would feel oneness with the totality around. Naturally, it is not a debate now. It is a natural love and expression spontaneously emerging out from one's being concerning the people around. It is a natural outcome of the spiritual unfoldment. You take your own guru. I will come to the point again. Your own guru you take. Has he not served the whole world? Out of compassion? Why? He has seen Krishna everywhere. So there is no question of doubt in that. And coming to the discretion, personal discretion, there are two things, friends, remember. There are standard common values which are very important, spread everywhere throughout the world. Human values, values which are eternal. There is no dispute as such as far as eternal values are considered, which are required for the sustenance of humanity itself. Coming to the discretion level, it is not discretion, it is a requirement. Same Lord Krishna treated differently in his life different people. Has it been based on discretion? No. So a person has to be treated in this way. He needs the treatment. A doctor treats a particular patient in this way. It is meant for him. And other patient is treated in different way.
Right.
It is meant for him.
Right. Khera sir, your take, if you could take it a little ahead. He talked about noble acts and Vedic way of life. It is really not a matter of personal discretion, but a requirement of our times when it comes to the young generation.
Absolutely. In fact, he just mentioned the words he used was that one man's food is another person's poison.
Right.
I do these programs in almost 20 different countries, and many times people ask, do you find cultural differences? In fact, I find more similarities than differences, first of all, number one. Number two is, as Swamiji said very well, it is not a discretion, it is a requirement. And third is, he mentioned about values. When we talk of values, whose values are we talking about? It's not your and my values. They are universal values, they are eternal values. They got to have benchmarks. There are a lot of students here. Whatever you do you have some quality standards and benchmarks? Yes, no. Do you have them? Now, if you didn't have them, could you ever achieve them? No. So let me just share with you quickly one thing. How do you establish, I need a little minute here to explain. How do you establish universal benchmarks on values and ethics? Let me share with you one little story. There was an elderly lady about 85 years old with 2 bags of groceries in her hand waiting for a bus. There was a big boy right behind her waiting for a bus. The bus came. They both got on the platform. It was packed totally. There was only one seat available at the far end, and the elderly lady started moving to get that seat. And this big boy came from behind, threw his big arm around the lady, and took a step and took that seat. This elderly lady fell down. All the bags of groceries got scattered. She was lying on the floor. There were many passengers in the bus. One of the passengers was an elderly lady. She started thinking how clumsy of this boy. She looked at the manners of the boy. There's a lawyer in the bus who thinks there must be a law against this kind of behavior. There was a surgeon in the bus who thinks this lady must have broken 3 ribs. There's a psychiatrist in the bus who thinks this boy is psychotic, needs mental help. Hear this. Now, 4 people thinking 4 different ways. One is looking at the manners, legality, surgically, and mentally. Not one of them ever asked this question, was this behavior right or wrong?
Let's ask them.
Let me finish.
Right.
Why don't we ask that question? Because the moment we ask that question, if this behavior is right or wrong, we become judgmental. And let me ask you, when your values are clear, what's wrong in being judgmental? Now, 2 questions come in. 1, should this boy have behaved like this with this lady? Yes, no. No. 2, should anyone behave like this with anybody? No. That's your universal benchmark. That's your value.
All right. Now, let's point taken and point well taken by the generation next. Nidhi, what do you have?
I want to say that spirituality is not just, being in mountains and staying in a secluded place. It's all about seeing oneness in everybody. As Shivji and Govindji right now explained properly, that how that lady was, mistreated by the person. So it's basically seeing oneness in everybody.
Right. ये कुछ कहना यहाँ पे चाहते हैं जी, आप बताइए.
According to you, in this technological world, who will win, technology or spirituality?
People with good values will win.
Beautiful.
Keep that in mind.
Excellent.
And the coming generation, hear this, the coming generation does not belong to technology. Absolutely not. Because let me share, I was in US and there was a conference of some principals and teachers together. Today kids have become so computer savvy. Sakal,
Yes, sir.
they have become so computer savvy that they have become uncomfortable with people. They're so good with the computer.
Do they agree?
Yeah.
Do they agree? You have become computer savvy, but in a way uncomfortable with people. How many of you feel in a similar fashion? Computer savvy, but uncomfortable with people.
Okay.
Well, we have a minority.
One person. But point is, you still got to live with people. Technology keeps changing. People don't change. That is a constant factor. You can't have babies from computers. You can't get married to computers. Listen, you got to still live with people, and this coming generation, the going century, belongs to people. From Harvard University, the man Goldman, who's written the book EQ, Emotional Intelligence. Donald Goldman, sorry, Donald Goldman. Read that book that answers that question very clearly. He says at Harvard University, this is coming into the future.
One point, Shekal, here, one point. Only one thing you have to understand is, are we dependent or independent or interdependent? There ends the matter.
Well, the Generation X says that they are independent or
No, interdependent.
Interdependent. That's what I wanted to get from you.
I'll ask, shoot them questions now if they say
We
they are
will shoot
dependent
a lot
or
of
independent.
questions on the Generation Next, and a lot of course, the thoughts are lined up. But that is after the break. It's time to take a short break on Generation Next. We have in the studios Shiv Khera, Mr. Shiv Khera, and Govind Chaitanya Swamiji. But before that, a quick reminder for our viewers also, in case you also want to participate in any of our Generation Next shows, please do SMS us. You have to type GNR, leave some space, name and address, and send the SMS to 5676733. We are here discussing on Gen Next, can spirituality and Generation Next, that is the youth of the country, coexist? Much more on that after this break.
मैं तो सीधी सीधी बात करने वाला आदमी हूँ कि जिस जगह पे सत्य है वहाँ खुदा है, जिस जगह पे अहिंसा है वहाँ ईश्वर है।
Welcome back to Generation Next. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and we just slipped into a break and we talked about today's topic, can spirituality and youth coexist? And we also discussed that, is it a matter of following faith or is it a matter of following one's own mind? And faith, tradition, technology, spirituality and science. And what does the Generation Next has to say about it? And right now, let's take one more question from the audience, please.
Hello, sir. I am Richa. My question is to Swami Ji. What do you think? What is spirituality all about? Is it about following a certain sect, a certain god? I mean, people get confused.
Do not even confuse with the path and the goal. Goal is different from the path. The path, whatever path you choose, nothing to do with it, no problem. But one thing is, ensure that path is safe, it's guided by a master, it has decent values, it also takes people around you. For example, today, just as on the road, I cannot travel on my own, alone. Not that I am scared. I need a good road, I need a traffic signal, I need somebody, I need a shop on the road, so many things required. Similarly, spirituality deals with something sublime and deep. And when it comes to practice, we have to live in the world, practically living, is it not? Career is more important, your goals are important, your achievements are important, your relationship with the people around you are important. So all these things are nothing but expressions of that understanding of the inner spirituality, living beautifully outside. That's called living spirituality.
And balancing.
Balance.
Right. Yes, what do you have to say?
Yeah, actually, we have got deep into the discussion, but only just I wanted to share that when we talk about coexistence of youth and spirituality, so coexistence can only occur when there is harmony between the two things, and there will be harmony only when we have understanding. So whether that's what we have to be clear, whether youth understands spirituality or not. I think the problem with us is that we don't actually, youth doesn't understand what spirituality is.
Right.
So we have to be very sure of that.
Right. What do you have to say?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the youth only. I think it's the adults don't understand spirituality by itself. And I think when, as adults, when we point a finger at them, I think we need to ask who's the one who's delinquent. It's not our youth. I think it's the adults.
If at all somebody has to be, accused or even show fingers, you should show the old man first. Then come down and down to the youth and then come to children. So youth are not only responsible. The Gurudev Swami Chidrupanandaji said youth are not useless but used less. They are not careless but cared less. So we love youth. We have no doubts.
Well, do you agree with that? Yes. Yes. All right. Yes, Hina.
Yeah, sir, hello. I want to ask you something that if in a life a person attains emotional satisfaction or satisfaction in just every field of his life, then what is attaining nirvana? How do you define attaining nirvana?
Go ahead, Swami.
To whom? To
both,
me or?
Both.
Both actually.
See, whenever you talk about mind and emotional satisfaction, emotional contentment, that always depend on outer situations and circumstances, is it not? But are they permanent? No. If no, then the next question is, if they change, I keep on changing and trying to balance myself. Where is the end for this? So the end is that recognizing my own real essential nature, nirvana, whatever you call, whatever you name it, realization, nirvana or samadhi or nirvikalpa samadhi or oneness with the truth, whatever it is, that actually puts you really in your own place. Since outer world is continuously changing, situations are changing, technology is changing, conditions are changing, people are changing. So today I am happy emotionally, but tomorrow I am not. Today I love you, tomorrow I may not love you. Why? Today's love, my love for you is depending on your behavior. You change your behavior. It is also, according to my calculation and analysis, I feel that you are bad. There is no standard for it. So therefore, emotional contentment may give you temporary pleasure, no doubt about it. But in the long run, as you evolve, you would grow in you a deep desire to realize the truth.
Right. So in your bestseller, You Can Win, you also talked about a lot, in fact, about emotional contentment.
I'd just like to say something that even I've seen so many TV evangelists on the television every day morning. They are addressing the people, the pravachans, and you hear people saying, सांसारिक जीवन से ऊपर उठ जाओ. अब दुख में आपको तकलीफ नहीं होनी चाहिए, सुख में खुशी नहीं होनी, सांसारिक जीवन से ऊपर उठ जाओ साहब. इसी आपके पड़ोसी पर अत्याचार अन्याय हो रहा है, आप सांसारिक जीवन से ऊपर उठे हैं. What kind of life is it? This is ridiculous. Let me come back to you, and they quote the scriptures to you. They quote the scriptures. You see, you just read the Vedanta by Swami Parthaswarthi. It says the word is detachment, not indifference. And people are behaving indifferent and they call they are detached. There is a world of a difference between indifference and detachment. Detachment gives you objectivity. Indifference is not spirituality. In fact, that is a low behavior. How can something not bother you? Slavery bothered Mahatma Gandhi. He came and fought. You see, ignorance bothered Swami Vivekananda. He came and served. How can it not bother you? That's the question.
Right. What is your question?
And when we practice spirituality, we also teach our students how to enhance the circle of influence, which inculcates moral values, sincerity, vision, attitude, and get away from the anxiety of circle of concern, which always consists of I should get what I want, my exam results, and government
me
policies.
And myself.
Yeah, me and myself.
Right.
But one point is
Swamiji.
said, don't be insensitive to the needs of the people around. That's what Shivji has said. That's what the spirituality points out. Spirituality doesn't tell us to become insensitive to the neighbor's needs, to the fellow human being's needs.
Right.
The real growth.
The same way through the scriptures.
True. The method of achieving is Bhagavad Gita you take, or any scripture you take in the world, any master's teaching you take, a great master's, great books are there, great values are there. That will put you into this kind of a mood or notion. Right. Understand.
Very briefly, let's take one last question from the audience.
You said science is, spirituality is a science. So when it is science, it must be learned from a bona fide school. That what Krishna said, evam parampara praptam. Then how do we decide actually which is bona fide and which is not?
You getting a right teacher always depend upon your true intentions and deepest desire. To the extent you are selfless and pure, to that extent you would get a right teacher who will not misguide. That always has been pointed upon, the sincere desire in the mind of a disciple or a student. In fact, any subject you take, material or spiritual, if there is a will, there is a way. And the way opens to me if my intentions are pure and desire is very noble. That's what happens.
Right. Well, it's almost time up. We've learned a lot and heard a lot and thought a lot and realized a lot when it comes to youth and spirituality. Just to wind up, a message from both of you, first from Shiv Khera. So, is the bottom line that today's youth, they know the difference between living and being alive?
Well, all I can say is, I'm just going to deviate slightly a little bit, and Swamiji mentioned about giving in life, not just receiving. See, we all have a need to take, everybody has a need to take, but a sign of a healthy personality is one that also has a need to give. That's one side. And you find anybody who is successful in this world, whether individually or as an organization, they have always lived by this one principle, that I will always give more than what I get to my family. I will always give more than what I get to my organization. I'll always give more than what I get to my customer and to my country. If we live by this philosophy, you tell me, do we have any competition? In fact, we become the competition in life to others.
Swamiji.
My simple advice, or rather out of love, is that simple thing is that keep a highest goal in life. Something nobler. Something, at the time or at the evening of your life, people should feel that, yeah, here is a guy who lived a perfect life, or who attempted at least to live a perfect life. Become a source of inspiration to the people around, be it in science and technology or anywhere, any field you choose. Become a source of inspiration, motivated and supported by spiritual values. But all that begins from regular study. Daily pick up a book and never go to bed without reading at least 2 pages a day. That will really unfold your personality and take you to the greatest heights of human achievements and perfection. I wish you all the best, and I withdraw here from this. Thank you very much. My love to all of you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shiv Khera and Govinda Chaitanyaji Swamiji. Both of you were honored to have you here on Gen X. Thanks once again, and a wonderful audience. Members of the ISKCON also, thank you very much for being with us. And for our viewers also, thanks very much for tuning in. So the moral of the story perhaps here is that when you talk about Generation Next, spirituality and youth, this is not a question. In fact, it's an answer in itself, because this is what in the last 25 minutes we have derived, and we have come to the conclusion that yes, this generation knows the difference between being alive and living, and here the answer comes from spirituality. That is the way of life for Generation Next. Thank you very much once again. And before I just leave you, a quick reminder in case you also want to participate. First, you can SMS. You have to type GNR, leave some space, name and address, and SMS on 56767. You can also email us on generationnext@ddnews.nic.in. And in case you want to write to us for your queries and suggestions and comments, we keep getting response from you, which of course helps us in giving you a better and a good show. So you can write to us on Generation Next, room number 8, DD News, CPC, Khelgaon, New Delhi, 49. That's all we have for you. I'll see you next time in the fresh episode of Generation Next. Namaskar. Thank you. Thank you very much.